Okay. So Susan, you also mentioned that you had some thoughts about the Oscars. Now you know that recently the Oscars have been accused of racism. There's a hashtag Oscars so white that's kind of going all over the internet.
Yep.
Jada Pinkett Smith, Will Smith's wife, recently said that she's not going to attend. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Spike Lee also said he's not going to attend. I think, well, Jada Pinkett Smith, I mean, it sure feels a lot like sour grapes to me. She didn't get a nomination, so she's mad. So this is what it feels like. I think that to boycott for her, for Spike Lee to boycott the Oscars, well, I mean, that doesn't that feel like a slap in the face to Chris Rock, one of my most favorite guys ever? He's hosting the Oscars, so he must not think it's that bad if he's hosting it. I think that Jada Pinkett Smith comes off, and Spike Lee comes off like, sour grapes. They're just mad that they weren't nominated. It doesn't help the industry. It doesn't help. And again, Chris Rock is hosting the Oscars, and I can't wait to see what he has to say about all of this. But I think that if the Black community is upset that they weren't nominated for these awards or this kind of recognition, or they feel that they're being slighted by the industry, then you got to do something else. Don't participate in the industry. Do something else. Do something else. It's as simple as that.
Well, there are people who are saying that. There are people who saw Jada's video as kind of a call to action to take their resources and kind of develop things of their own.
Well,
Um,
I think always, in all cases, you want to be successful, you have to figure it out yourself. You have to build it yourself. You have to get a coalition of like minded people to work with you to promote the values and the ideas and the community that matters to you. You
mhm.
don't like what the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences is doing or the way they're recognized, then form your own. Go right ahead. Who's stopping you? Who's stopping you? But I think that Jada Pinkett Smith, to me, she came off as sour grapes. She didn't get nominated, so she's stamping her foot and putting her hand on her hip, saying, "Well, oh yeah, well I'm not going to." Come on, grow up, grow up.
So you think that if she or her husband had been nominated, you think that none of this would have occurred?
Correct. I
Mm.
do, which is why it all comes across as sour grapes to me. And Chris Rock, how much I love Chris Rock. What a funny, funny man. I always laugh about he once did a bit about Nelson Mandela and how hard it is to be married. I'll never forget it, and I've cited it a million times. He talks about how the point of this is that being married is like it's not easy. He says Nelson Mandela. He spent 37 years in a prison cell, and he was with no windows, and he was starved, and he was beaten, and he was tormented, and he was tortured. 37 years. Finally, he gets released. He goes back to what was his wife's name? Oh, you know what?
Sorry, her name is Winnie.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right,
Hmm.
right. He goes home to Winnie. Within 6 months, he files for divorce. So this I can't do. No, this I can't do. This I
Yeah,
can't.
well, Chris never had good things to say about marriage. He used to make jokes about how horrible marriage was back when he was
Right.
married.
It's
So,
obvious, but he is funny. He is so funny and so right in there. Fearless. I love that. I love that he's fearless. That he says all the things that scare white people to death, but they're true. They're funny. I love them. I absolutely love them. I love people who speak the truth. I love people who are knowledgeable. I think Chris Rock must do a lot of homework. He must do a lot of, like Whoopi Goldberg. These are people who are invested in really learning about what they're talking about before they're talking about it. So I love that. I love that. But I think the Oscars, I think Jada Pinkett Smith, sorry you weren't nominated. Sorry, concussion wasn't. I'm sorry. But everybody doesn't always win. Everybody
well,
doesn't always win. And maybe Jada Pinkett Smith, think to yourself, maybe the other actresses that were nominated maybe were better than you.
mm, well, the thing about we know that that you can't always win. But white people always win at the Oscars. White
No,
males, not all white people win, but
no.
but
White
usually the
white people
winners are
always
white.
win political elections. White people always win political elections, right? Tell that to the man sitting in the Oval Office. Come on, that's
White
nonsense.
people, you're
It's
right.
nonsense.
Every now and then we get a W. Every now and then black people will get something. But for the most part, if you look at the history of the Oscars, most of the winners have been white, and most of them have been male. And so, I'm in agreement with you on that key point that you made about doing something of your own. I think that black people are learning that. that the best way to combat oppression is to kind of get away from it.
Well,
And
you know,
that's and
that's
that's what I
absolutely
think.
true. It's
That's what I
absolutely
carried from Jada's
now,
comment.
100 years ago, Jewish doctors, they were trained to be doctors, they weren't permitted to practice in the hospitals in New York. So what did they do? They formed Mount Sinai, they formed Mount Israel, they formed, hospitals specifically for Jewish doctors because they were excluded from every place else. So their answer was, all right, we're going to make our own. And they did. And now these are the hospitals you want to go to if God forbid you were seriously ill. So yes, you have to form an alliance and an allegiance with the people who are like-minded to you. Build something yourself. If you really feel as though the system is so stacked against you that you'll never get ahead in their system, build your own system. Obviously, build your own system.
Well, I think you're right, and it's funny when I teach my students, I point to examples like that you start something of your own, and in a generation or so, you may be the standard bearer in that area. I think that one thing that's interesting is I wonder with the Jewish community, what would have happened with these same doctors if they'd started these hospitals in Germany as opposed to the U.S.
They
What do you think?
They wouldn't. Well, I've said to you, as a Jew, I'm never going to live in Germany. I don't want to go to Germany. I've had reason to go to Europe on business, and there's been a stopover in Germany. I don't even get off the plane. I don't want to even be on German soil. I just don't want to. I know that there's residual hatred. I know there is. In the same way, there's residual hatred among some factors in the United States towards Black people. There is absolutely residual hatred in parts of Germany and Austria and those other countries towards Jews. It wouldn't be there. You're not As a Jew, I would never feel completely welcomed or embraced in Germany. So no, the Jewish doctors, they were in New York, they formed Mount Sinai Hospital, they formed Beth Israel Hospital, they formed the hospitals that today lead the world in every medical procedure, every bit of medical research. Form your own. Form your own. Be in lockstep with people who are like-minded, who are as capable as anyone else. But if you honestly feel that you can't succeed in the system that exists, then you have to create a parallel system where you and yours are welcomed and embraced and promoted and supported and encouraged. No one's gonna give it to you. No one is gonna give it to you. You mentioned affirmative action before. I don't know that you and I ever had the affirmative action conversation, but we're not coming down on the same side of that, are we?
So